I never wanted to pigeonhole myself with writing books, and especially because how I sell books is really through social media. Algorithms will reward you for staying consistent, and staying consistent means you're trapped into selling one kind of book, or not growing as an artist or an author. And my first million views I got on TikTok for complaining about the 9 to 5, and that was fun. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed complaining about work. I'd worked for 30 years or something until I managed to sell my prints and art online and all that sort of stuff. And I did that for a while, and I thought, oh wow, 1 million views, that's amazing. So I did it again, and I did it for a couple of months, and then I got kind of sick of it. I was running this black smoke through my head. I thought, I'm not going to keep doing this. And so I started other things, and all of a sudden my views dropped massively, and I thought, so I went back to making complaint videos about work for about 2 weeks. And I went, nah, I can't keep doing this. This is stupid. I'm not doing it because it's basically telling me, keep making those. You're onto something, and we're only going to reward you for that. And so I stopped, and my views dropped. I got less engagement for years now, actually, on TikTok, because I stopped complaining. And it's only a random one every now and again that might break out, but yeah, never 1 million again. After getting maybe 15 videos that got over 1 million views, I could only write a book that I could sell that had something to do with complaining about work. And I was like, do I want to put that out into the world? Which I did, self-published. It didn't do that good, do that well. What I worked out is people love watching the videos about complaining about work, but they had no interest in keeping a book by their bedside that was complaining. No one wants to read a book of complaint. And so I started making other stuff, and I thought, I'm never going to paint myself into a corner again, because I've seen it with other creators. Their social media is specifically about one thing, and I see them get trapped in it, do the same thing that I did, and then they're writing that same book. And if they want a book that actually breaks out, they have to do another book of the same thing, and that's kind of boring. That's a boring ass life. And I've seen them do it, or even try to break out of it, and they haven't been able to break out of it. And so I started writing just my other stuff, which was kind of short, little aphorisms, and that, amazingly, it did really well. And it was kind of about life and muddling through, and art and beauty, and a bit of complaint as well. And that was called You're Going to Be Okay Because You Fuck No Matter What, which happens to be in the show notes for this 7 free-minute YouTube to the audiobook. And so I made that. I was like, oh, great. I've broken out, and that actually sold, and along with the stuff I wrote about my mum, which was amazing as well. That span me out, and these were books that people actually wanted, and they didn't do as well consistently as complaining about work, like when I posted videos or posts about them. But people wanted those books. And I thought, finally, I haven't painted myself into a corner. I've got out of it. I've got out of the trap. And so I started writing another one, which is going to be out next year. And I think it's better than You're Going to Be Okay. I love it. But also, it's more of the same as You're Going to Be Okay. And at the end of it, I've got to see it fresh and new again when it comes out next year. But I'm tired of that. I'm tired of this thing that I'm in, which is kind of humor and poetry. I worked out I'm not really a poet. I'm a humorist that writes jokes that aren't funny. That's what I do. And it took me a long time to realize that, with a bit of poetry sprinkled through. Part of me is kind of tired of it. And I'm looking at other poets who write these younger poets who would be seen as Insta poets or whatever. They're doing really well, algorithmically wise. And some of it I find a bit on the cliche side of things, but it's still beautiful. There's kind of a longing and a yearning for something more than this life. It's not funny, it's very earnest, but it tickles some part of me that I miss in my own writing, because I can be acerbic, funny, strange, weird. Sometimes my stuff gives a kind of permission to mess up and just try stuff, which I love, but I'm tired of that. I'm actually tired of my own stuff. And because, writing in a second book about that sort of stuff, I ran out of it. By the end of the second book, I felt like I'd perfected and honed what I learnt by writing You're Gonna Be Okay and made it even better. But now I'm kind of tired. I'm tired of that. And so I've started writing new stuff. Only one or two little things here and there. And the algorithm doesn't quite like it. Because I built, I hate the expression built an audience. You don't build an audience. What is that? But it's true. That's the only thing I can use for the moment. But yeah, people know my stuff for that. Now when I thought I hadn't trapped myself and I'd freed myself, now I feel trapped again, and I have to kind of work my way out of that. Maybe I do want to write things that make me feel that sort of, that gentle longing for something, for whatever that is. And the audience won't write, probably most of it won't understand or write along with me, and the algorithm will notice that and completely punish me for it, and I just have to do it again. But yeah, like I've seen like an author like Matt Haig. He writes about, I think he's a really good example of someone who's played around with so many different genres and styles of writing, and I see him kind of manage to navigate that really well. I haven't read The Midnight Library, but I know about it. I kind of know what the plot's about. I read his Reasons to Stay Alive, one of his other books, and he sort of moves all around the place. So that gives me small hope that it can be done. And so I'm writing now new stuff, like this book that I'm tentatively calling Beautiful Fool, because I just handed in the manuscript for the semi kind of sequel follow-up to You're Gonna Be Okay, which yesterday I handed that in, and so I'm writing this new thing called Beautiful Fool, which is kind of tender and loving, and a bit weird, still a bit weird and strange. Still has kind of the stuff that I love. Yeah, I'm not sure how it's going to happen, or the worries of changing things up again and mixing it up. If I'm not interested in what I'm writing, of course the reader's not going to be interested. I just don't give a shit. You can tell. You can trick yourself. I can trick myself. But and so I've got to write the stuff that the book. It's a cliche. Write the book you want to read. And that's the kind of stuff that I love at the moment. And so I'm going there and going to see what happens. So it's the tricky part of finding an audience through social media and finding an audience with a book. They're two separate things. I write stuff that just sits in a book. It doesn't have to work on social media. The book doesn't have to be sold through social media. The book is good enough just to be picked up and loved for what it is. And that might not happen. I've done it before, self-publishing. There was a book I wrote in 2015. It was called Walk. When I took it around to bookstores, the book buyers loved it. This is a self-published thing. And they thought, oh my God, this is great. But it sold 40 copies across about 10 bookstores, if that. So yeah, it's always it's always hard to work out that weird mix between what I love and what an audience that might like it as well. I don't know. But yeah, I'm going back to writing a book that not for the audience, because the last book was kind of like writing a voice that I'd perfected through You're Gonna Be Okay for the audience who loved that. And I loved writing it too. And there's some pieces in it that I feel like are doorways to the new book. That's what I love about writing a book. Every book I write, I always find that there's one piece in it that I look, with a bit of time and a bit of space, and I look back and I go, that's the doorway piece to the next book. And I didn't know it at the time when I was writing it. And I love that feeling. And I can see the doorway pieces emerging from the last book I wrote to what would seem to be a completely new book.